At my brother's wedding, I refused $30,000. He dragged my daughter by the hair, but suddenly the guests turned on him as I exposed the secret affair that ruined his life and left him humiliated. Okay, so where do I even begin? I guess with Martine. My brother, the golden child. Ugh, even typing that makes my stomach churn. It's a bitter taste, like bile rising in my throat. He's always been the successful one, the charming one, the one everyone gravitated towards like moths to a flame. A doctor, no less. Married to Isabella, a breathtakingly beautiful woman with a smile that could melt glaciers. 2 perfect, porcelain-skinned children. A boy and a girl, always impeccably dressed. A sprawling house in a gated community in the most exclusive neighborhood in Buenos Aires. The whole 9 yards, plus a few extra acres for good measure. His wedding? Don't even get me started. Just picturing it makes my head throb. This giant, ridiculous hall, dripping in white silk, chandeliers the size of my tiny, sputtering used car, enough imported champagne to drown a small country, or at least float it away on a bubbly tide. Garlands of fragrant jasmine and lilies perfumed the air, so thick and sweet it was almost cloying. It was like something out of a movie, a glamorous, romantic comedy. The kind of movie my life definitely isn't. My life is more of a gritty, low-budget drama, filmed in a dimly lit apartment with a perpetually leaky faucet. See, I'm Elena, the older sister. The forgotten one. The single mom, perpetually juggling 2 demanding jobs just to keep a roof over our heads. A roof that, incidentally, desperately needed patching. My daughter, Sophia, is 8 years old, with eyes the color of dark chocolate and a smile that can light up a room. She's the sweetest, most empathetic kid in the world, but she's always been kind of invisible next to Martin's perfect offspring. They flitted around the wedding hall like miniature royalty, their laughter echoing off the high ceilings, while Sophia clung to my hand, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and insecurity. We're the other side of the family. The side that doesn't get invited to the fancy vacations in Punta del Este or the weekend getaways to their sprawling country house with the infinity pool overlooking the vineyards. We're the ones who get the hand-me-down clothes, the ones who sit at the kids' table even though Sophia's practically a teenager, in her own mind at least, the ones who get the pitying looks and the whispered comments about how Elena could have done so much better for herself. Not that I care, really. At least, that's what I tell myself as I swallow the lump in my throat and force a smile. The thing about Martin is, he thinks money can fix everything. He thinks he can buy his way out of any problem, smooth over any crack in his perfect facade with crisp $100 bills. Like a plaster saint gleaming on the outside, hollow within. A few years ago, I caught him doing something shady. Let's just say it involves some questionable business practices, a few forged signatures, and a lot of hushed phone calls he thought I didn't overhear. He offered me a hefty sum, enough to pay off my mortgage and then some to keep my mouth shut. I remember the way he slid the check across the table, his manicured fingers leaving no prints on the pristine white paper. 50,000 pesos, enough to change my life, to give Sophia the opportunities she deserved. But the price? My silence, my complicity. I looked him in the eye, my stomach twisting with disgust, and told him to shove it where the sun don't shine. He didn't take it well. His face, usually so smooth and composed, contorted with rage. The smile vanished, replaced by a thin, cruel line. He's always had this way of looking at me like I'm some kind of insect, something beneath him, something insignificant he can crush if he wants to. That look hasn't changed since that day. If anything, it's gotten worse. And now, looking back at the events of his wedding, I realize that incident with the check was just the beginning. A prelude to the storm that was about to break. A storm that would tear our family apart and leave us all drenched in the bitter rain of truth. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a blur of hushed whispers and knowing glances. Like a low hum in the background of every family gathering, there was this unease, a tension you could practically cut with a knife. My tia Celia, bless her gossipy heart, cornered me at my abuela's birthday party, her eyes wide with a mixture of scandal and pity. Elena, M.I. amor, she whispered, her breath hot against my ear, reeking of stale cigarettes and cheap perfume. Have you heard the rumors about Martine? I feigned ignorance, my heart pounding against my ribs, but she just chuckled, a knowing glint in her eye. Elena, don't play coy. Everyone's talking about it. His friend. She didn't need to say more. The friend was Valeria, Sophia's godmother. Beautiful, vivacious Valeria, with her cascading dark hair and a laugh that could fill a stadium. The same Valeria, who always seemed to be a little too close to Martine, a little too touchy-feely, a little too present in every family photo. I'd seen it too, the way they looked at each other, the stolen glances, the lingering touches, the inside jokes that left everyone else feeling like outsiders. I tried to ignore it, to tell myself I was imagining things, that it was just my own insecurities projecting onto their perfectly crafted relationship. But the whispers persisted, growing louder, more insistent, weaving a web of doubt and suspicion around my brother's seemingly perfect life. I felt this heavy weight in my chest, a constant pressure, like a stone lodged in my throat. I wanted to scream, to confront him, to demand answers, but something held me back. Loyalty? Fear? Maybe a bit of both. My mother, of course, was in full denial. Elena, don't be ridiculous, she'd snapped, her voice tight with warning when I cautiously broached the subject. Martine would never do something like that. He loves Isabella. They have a beautiful family. You need to stop listening to gossip. But her words lacked conviction, her eyes darting away from mine, her hand trembling slightly as she adjusted her perfectly coiffed hair. She knew. I knew she knew. And the knowledge that she was willing to bury her head in the sand, to protect Martin's image at all costs, filled me with a mixture of anger and despair. Martine, meanwhile, floated through it all, oblivious, or, more likely, simply unwilling to acknowledge the storm brewing around him. He was too busy basking in the glow of his own self-importance, too confident in his ability to control the narrative, to manipulate the situation to his advantage. He had this unshakable belief that he was untouchable, that his money and his charm could shield him from any consequence. He was wrong, of course. So wrong. But I didn't know it then. All I knew was the growing unease, the whispers, the weight of the secret pressing down on me, threatening to suffocate me. I felt trapped, caught in a web of lies and deceit, with no way out. And the wedding, the grand spectacle of his perfect life, loomed on the horizon like a ticking time bomb. The reception was everything you'd expect from Martine, over the top, extravagant, suffocating. The air hung thick with the scent of expensive perfume and the murmur of polite conversation, punctuated by the clinking of champagne flutes and the rhythmic thump of the bass from the live band. Sophia, thankfully, had found a group of kids her age and was happily twirling around the dance floor, her chocolate-brown eyes shining with delight. For a moment I allowed myself to relax, to breathe, to forget the whispers and the weight in my chest. I even managed to choke down a glass of the ridiculously expensive champagne, the bubbles tickling my nose. Maybe, just maybe, I could get through this night without incident. I should have known better. Martine, ever the gracious host, weaved his way through the crowd, his smile plastered on his face like a porcelain mask. He stopped in front of me, his eyes, usually so warm and charming, cold and calculating. Elena, he said, his voice low, barely audible above the music. Can I have a word? My stomach clenched. I knew this was coming. He led me away from the dance floor, towards a secluded corner of the hall, near the towering floral arrangements that probably cost more than my rent. Look, he began, his voice still low but edged with impatience. I know what you're thinking, about the rumors. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a check, already filled out. $30,000. It was less than what he'd offered me before, but still a substantial sum. Enough to fix the leaky roof, maybe even take Sophia on a real vacation. He held it out to me, his fingers tapping impatiently against the paper. This is for your silence, he said, his voice tight, the mask slipping for just a second, revealing the anger simmering beneath the surface. "It's more than enough to forget what you think you know." My blood ran cold. The audacity of it all. The sheer arrogance. He thought he could buy me, again, silence me with a piece of paper, erase the truth with money. "You think you can buy me?" I asked, my voice shaking with a mixture of anger and disgust. "You think you can just throw money at this and make it go away?" His smile vanished completely. "Just take the damn money, Elena," he hissed, his eyes narrowing. "It's better for everyone. For Isabella, for the kids, for the family." "Family?" I laughed, the sound harsh and brittle. "You call this family? You're destroying your family, Martine, and you think I'm going to be complicit in it? You're delusional." He took a step closer, his face inches from mine, his breath hot on my cheek. "Don't push me, Elena," he whispered, his voice laced with menace. "You don't want to do this." "Or what?" I challenged, my fear giving way to anger. "What are you going to do, Martine? Offer me more money?" He didn't answer. Just then, Sophia, her face flushed with excitement from dancing, skipped over to us. "Mama, can I have some cake?" she asked, her eyes wide and innocent. She didn't notice the tension, the anger radiating off of Martine like heat from a furnace. "Not now, am I, Amor?" I said, gently pushing her away. "Go back and play with your friends." But before she could turn away, Martine lashed out. He grabbed a fistful of her hair, yanking her head back with a sharp tug. Sophia cried out in pain, her eyes filling with tears. The world seemed to slow down. The music faded. The chatter died down. The air thickened, heavy with shock and disbelief. I felt a surge of adrenaline, a primal rage coursing through my veins. My daughter, he hurt my daughter. And in that moment, everything changed. The whispers, the rumors, the weight in my chest. It all exploded, erupting in a fiery burst of anger and defiance. I saw red. My hand flew to Sophia's head, fingers tangling in her soft, dark curls, trying desperately to pry Martin's fingers loose. The grip he had on her hair was like iron, his knuckles bone-white against her scalp. I felt a sickening lurch in my stomach as Sophia's cries pierced through the festive music, each sob a tiny shard of glass lodged in my heart. The scent of jasmine, once sweet and intoxicating, now felt cloying, suffocating. "Let her go, Martine!" I screamed, my voice raw, stripped bare of any pretense of civility, a primal sound escaping from the depths of my being. I pulled at his hand, my nails digging into his skin, but he wouldn't budge. He just glared at me, his eyes blazing with a cold, hard fury I'd never seen before. His jaw was clenched so tight I thought it might shatter. For a split second, the world seemed to tilt on its axis. My mind went blank. A terrifying void where moments before there had been anger. A wave of nausea washed over me, leaving a bitter taste in my mouth. I felt a flicker of fear, a primal instinct to protect myself, to shrink back, to avoid the inevitable explosion I knew was coming, to avoid the shame, the whispers, the judgment. My mother's voice, sharp and laced with warning, echoed in my head. "Don't cause a scene, Elena. Think of the family." The words, so often used to control and silence me, now felt like a physical weight, pressing down on my chest, stealing my breath. But then I looked at Sophia. Her small face was screwed up in pain, tears streaming down her cheeks, leaving clean streaks through the carefully applied blush. Her lower lip trembled, and I saw the terror reflected in her wide, chocolate-brown eyes, and in that instant, the fear vanished, replaced by a burning, all-consuming rage. This wasn't about family anymore. This wasn't about Martin's carefully constructed image, or my mother's desperate pleas for conformity. This was about my daughter. This was about protecting her, about defending her, about making sure no one, not even her own uncle, ever dared to lay a hand on her again. The champagne I'd drunk earlier churned in my stomach, the bubbles now a burning acid. I don't know where the strength came from, but a surge of adrenaline coursed through me, hot and powerful. I shoved Martine with all my might, putting every ounce of my being into the push. He stumbled back, his polished shoes slipping on the polished marble floor, his hand finally releasing Sophia's hair. She immediately buried her face in my side, her small body shaking with sobs, her tiny hands clutching at my dress. I held her close, my arms wrapping around her like a protective shield, stroking her hair, whispering soothing words. "Shh, mi amor. It's okay, Mama's here," even as my own heart pounded against my ribs like a trapped bird. I wanted to scream, to launch myself at him, to claw his eyes out, to inflict the same pain he had inflicted on my daughter. But I forced myself to stay calm, to focus on Sophia, on comforting her, on making sure she was okay. I knelt down, bringing my face to hers, cupping her cheeks in my hands. "Are you all right, mi vida? Did he hurt you anywhere else?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly despite my efforts to remain composed. Sophia shook her head, her sobs gradually subsiding into hiccups, her grip on my dress loosening slightly. The world around me, previously a blur of music and laughter, now seemed to sharpen, the edges coming into focus. I registered the shocked gasps, the hushed whispers, the curious stares directed at us. People were starting to gather, drawn by the commotion, their faces a mixture of curiosity and concern. I saw my mother pushing her way through the crowd, her face ashen, her eyes wide with panic. She reached for me, her hand outstretched, her lips moving, forming words I couldn't quite decipher. "Elena, please," she mouthed, her eyes pleading with me to stay silent, to not make a scene. It was like being underwater, the sounds muffled, distorted, the festive music now a distant, jarring hum. All I could hear was Sophia's soft cries, the pounding of my own heart, the roaring in my ears. And a new sound, a low, steady hum, building in intensity, like a pressure cooker about to explode. It was the sound of my own fury, simmering just beneath the surface, threatening to erupt and consume everything, everyone, in its path. The hand that wasn't holding Sophia balled into a fist, the nails digging into my palm. I looked from my mother's pleading face to Sophia's tear-streaked one, and I knew with a chilling certainty that I couldn't stay silent. Not anymore. My mother's hand tightened on my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "Elena, por favor," she hissed, her voice barely audible above the rising murmur of the crowd. "Don't. Just don't." Her eyes darted nervously towards Martin, who stood a few feet away, his face a mask of barely controlled rage, his chest heaving. He looked like he wanted to say something, to do something, but he seemed frozen in place, caught in the headlights of the unfolding disaster. I could feel the weight of her plea, the desperation in her grip. She was terrified of what I might do, of the scandal, of the shame. She wanted me to sweep it all under the rug, to pretend it hadn't happened, to maintain the illusion of our perfect family. But the illusion had shattered, broken into a million pieces by Martin's violent outburst, and I wouldn't, pick up the pieces and glue them back together. Not this time. I gently disentangled myself from my mother's grasp, my gaze fixed on the microphone stand near the dance floor. It gleamed under the soft lighting, a beacon calling me forward. It was a sudden, impulsive decision, a visceral reaction to the injustice I had witnessed. I needed to speak. I needed to be heard. I needed to expose the truth, no matter the consequences. With Sophia still clinging to my side, I walked towards the microphone, each step echoing in the sudden hush that had fallen over the room. The music stopped abruptly, the chatter died down, replaced by a stunned silence. All eyes were on me. I could feel them. Hundreds of eyes, boring into me, curious, expectant, judging. The champagne bubbles in my stomach felt like tiny needles, pricking at my insides. My heart pounded against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence. I reached the microphone, my hand trembling slightly as I adjusted its height. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice, to quell the rising tide of emotion that threatened to overwhelm me. I looked out at the sea of faces, at the shock and confusion reflected in their eyes. I saw Isabella, her beautiful face pale and drawn, her eyes wide with a dawning horror. And then I spoke. I need everyone's attention, please, I said, my voice surprisingly steady, amplified by the microphone, echoing through the silent hall. The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. The silence deepened, thick and suffocating, broken only by Sophia's soft sniffles beside me. There's something you all need to know about Martine, I continued, my voice gaining strength, fueled by the burning anger that still coursed through my veins. He's not the man you think he is. I paused, letting the words sink in, watching as the shock and confusion on their faces morphed into something else. Curiosity, anticipation, a morbid fascination. The air crackled with tension, thick and palpable. He's been having an affair, I said, the words loud and clear, cutting through the silence like a knife. With Valeria, Sophia's godmother. A collective gasp rippled through the room, a wave of disbelief washing over the assembled guests. Whispers erupted, spreading like wildfire through the hall, the hushed murmurs growing louder, more insistent. I saw Isabella's face crumple, her eyes filling with tears, her hand flying to her mouth as if to stifle a sob. The carefully applied makeup couldn't hide the devastation etched on her features, the raw pain that radiated from her like heat from a furnace. My heart ached for her, for the betrayal she had endured, for the life that was now irrevocably shattered. Martine, his face contorted with rage, started towards me, his fists clenched, his eyes blazing. But he stopped, frozen in place by the sheer force of the collective disapproval directed at him. He looked around the room, at the shocked faces, the condemning stares, the whispers that had now escalated into open murmurs of disgust. His carefully constructed facade had crumbled, his perfect image shattered into a million pieces. He was no longer the golden boy, the charming doctor, the perfect husband and father. He was exposed, vulnerable, humiliated. And in that moment, I knew I had done the right thing. For Sophia, for Isabella, for myself. The truth, no matter how painful, had finally been spoken. And the silence, the suffocating silence that had hung over our family for so long, had finally been broken. The aftermath was chaotic, to say the least. Like a bomb had gone off, scattering debris everywhere. The elegant wedding reception, once a picture of perfect bliss, descended into pandemonium. People were shouting, crying, arguing. The music, which had stopped abruptly when I took the microphone, remained silent, replaced by a cacophony of angry voices and the clatter of dropped silverware. The sweet scent of jasmine and lilies was overwhelmed by the acrid smell of spilled champagne and something else, something metallic, like blood in the air. Not actual blood, thank God, but the kind of tension that leaves you feeling bruised and battered. Isabella, poor Isabella, was inconsolable. Her sobs echoed through the hall, raw and heart-wrenching. Her carefully constructed composure, the elegant mask she'd worn throughout the evening, had shattered completely. She was surrounded by a cluster of women, aunts and cousins, all clucking and murmuring words of comfort, their faces etched with pity and concern. I wanted to go to her, to hold her, to tell her how sorry I was, but I couldn't. I felt like an intruder, a trespasser in her pain. My words, meant to liberate, had also inflicted a deep, agonizing wound. Martin, his face a mask of fury and humiliation, stormed out of the hall, pushing past the throng of stunned guests, leaving a trail of chaos in his wake. I watched him go, a strange mix of satisfaction and guilt churning in my stomach. He deserved it, I told myself. He deserved the public humiliation, the exposure, the consequences of his actions. But seeing him like that, so broken and defeated, also twisted something inside me. He was still my brother, after all. Sophia, bless her heart, remained glued to my side, her small hand gripping mine tightly. She was quiet now, her sobs subsided, her eyes wide and watchful, taking in the chaos around her. I could feel her trembling, the aftershocks of the trauma still reverberating through her small body. I knelt down, pulling her close, burying my face in her soft, dark hair. "It's okay, M.I. Amor," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "It's all over now." But even as I said the words, I knew they weren't entirely true. The fallout fro him this night, the ripples of my actions would continue to spread, touching all of us, changing our lives forever. In the days that followed, the doubt began to creep in, insidious and relentless. Had I done the right thing? Had I gone too far? Should I have stayed silent, for the sake of family, for the sake of Isabella and her children? The images of the wedding, the chaos, Isabella's devastated face, played on repeat in my mind, like a broken record, each replay amplifying the guilt and the uncertainty. My mother, predictably, was furious. "You've ruined him, Elena," she'd screamed, her voice laced with venom. "You've destroyed his life, his marriage, his reputation. How could you do this to your own brother?" Her words, sharp and accusatory, cut me to the core. I knew she was hurting, that she was grieving the loss of the perfect image she'd so carefully cultivated of her golden boy. But her anger, her inability to see beyond the surface, to acknowledge the pain Martine had inflicted, fueled my own resentment. The family was fractured, divided into camps. Some sided with Martine, whispering about my betrayal, my lack of loyalty. Others, mostly the women, expressed their support, their quiet understanding. But even their sympathy felt tainted, tinged with a hint of judgment. I was the pariah, the troublemaker, the one who had dared to speak the truth, to shatter the illusion of our perfect family. And what about Isabella? I hadn't spoken to her since the wedding. I'd sent her a message expressing my deepest apologies, my heartfelt sympathy, but she hadn't replied. I didn't blame her. What could I possibly say to her that would make any difference? My words, meant to expose the truth, had also ripped her world apart. The weight of it all pressed down on me, heavy and suffocating. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of doubt and regret. Had I made things worse? Had I created more pain than I had alleviated? The questions haunted me, swirling around in my head, keeping me awake at night. But then I would look at Sophia, sleeping peacefully in her bed, her small chest rising and falling with each breath, and I would remember the look on her face, the terror in her eyes, the pain in her cry, and I would know, with a certainty that transcended the doubt and the guilt, that I had done what I had to do. I had protected my daughter, I had defended her, and that, in the end, was all that mattered. But still, the doubt lingers, the guilt gnaws at me. I keep replaying the scene in my head, wondering if there was another way, a less destructive way, to handle the situation. I keep asking myself, AITA, am I the asshole for exposing my brother's affair at his wedding after he hurt my daughter? Was there another way to handle the situation? Did I go too far? I need to know if I did the right thing. I need an outside perspective. Please, Reddit, tell me, was I wrong? It's been a few weeks since the wedding that wasn't, and the fallout is, well, it's a fallout, like Chernobyl levels of fallout. Radioactive, toxic, you get the picture. Our family is a shattered mess, broken shards of what used to be. We barely speak. My mother still glares at me like I'm the devil incarnate, muttering about how I've brought shame upon the family. She hasn't spoken to Martine either, but I know she blames me. It's always my fault. I'm the one who rocked the boat, the one who dared to disrupt the carefully constructed facade of our perfect little family. Martine, unsurprisingly, hates me. I haven't seen him, but I've heard through the grapevine that he's livid. He's apparently telling everyone that I'm a liar, a jealous, vindictive bitch who ruined his life out of spite. He's trying to rewrite the narrative, to paint himself as the victim. It's classic Martine. Always the victim, even when he's the one inflicting the pain. He refuses to take any responsibility for his actions. It's always someone else's fault, always mine. Isabella, God, my heart breaks for her. She's filed for divorce, of course. I can't even imagine what she's going through. The betrayal, the humiliation, the public spectacle of it all. I tried to reach out to her again, but she still hasn't responded. I don't blame her. I probably wouldn't either. Sophia, she's been quiet, withdrawn. She still has nightmares, wakes up screaming, her little body drenched in sweat. I hold her close, Whisper soothing words tell her, "It's okay that Mama's here." But the fear in her eyes, the lingering trauma, it haunts me. I see it in the way she flinches when someone raises their voice, in the way she clings to my hand a little too tightly, in the way she avoids talking about the wedding. I feel so guilty. I was supposed to protect her, and yet I'm the one who exposed her to this mess. I'm the one who brought this chaos into her life. The guilt is a constant companion, a shadow that follows me everywhere. I replay the scene over and over in my head, agonizing over every detail, every word, every action. Was there another way? Could I have handled it differently? Should I have just taken the money, kept my mouth shut, preserved the illusion of our perfect family? The questions circle endlessly, like vultures picking at the carcass of my conscience. I know logically that I did the right thing. Martine needed to be stopped. Isabella deserved to know the truth. Sophia deserved to be protected. But the emotional toll, the fallout, the fractured family, the broken marriage, the lingering trauma, it's all so heavy. It weighs on me, crushing me beneath its weight. So here I am, Reddit, bearing my soul to strangers on the internet. Because I don't know what else to do. I don't know who else to turn to. I need an outside perspective. I need to know if I'm crazy. I need to know if I made the right decision. I need to know AITA. Am I the asshole for exposing my brother's affair at his wedding after he hurt my daughter? Was there another way to handle the situation? Did I go too far? Please, tell me. I need to know.